As I age, I find myself spending more time contemplating my past. And if I'm not attentive, I focus on my mistakes and get stuck in a pit of remorse, laser focused on people I treated callously, situations I mishandled or sometimes mangled beyond repair, and opportunities lost to ego, arrogance, ignorance, or all of the above. Reflection is necessary. Learning from the past is how we evolve and act differently when next confronted with a similar situation. But there's a difference between reflection and self-torture. The former moves you forward. The latter just keeps you spinning in place. In quantum mechanics, a system holds multiple possibilities at once until a series of events collapses it into a single outcome. Remorse works similarly, embodying both destructive and healing forces. Which one manifests depends on whether we use it as medicine or poison. Authors of ancient texts understood this paradox better than we realize. Peter and Judas both faced devastating failure, experienced gut-wrenching shame and remorse, and had that same, "Oh God, what have I done?" moment. But Peter used his remorse to discover a doorway back to a purpose-filled life, while Judas's ultimately leads to his death. The difference wasn't the severity of their actions, but whether they could learn from their mistakes and forge a path forward. Peter believed that restoration was possible and returned to his work. Judas mistakenly thought he was beyond hope, demonstrating the nefarious, destructive nature of remorse. Godly sorrow, as the ancient texts call it, is supposed to be a tunnel, not a tomb. The Buddhists tell a story about a monk named Angulimala, which literally means garland of fingers. In the Pali canon, Angulimala begins his journey as ahimsaka, a gifted pupil whose jealous rivals poisoned their teacher's minds against him. The teacher then demands proof of loyalty, 1,000 human fingers, setting ahimsaka on a gruesome path that earns him the name Angulimala. When he confronts the Buddha, Angulimala chases him but cannot catch up. Finally, the Buddha stops, turns around and says, "I've stopped, Angulimala. Do you?" Understanding that the Buddha means he has stopped harming other beings, Angulimala renounces violence, drops his weapons, and becomes a monk. He later endures the public's anger through stones and a variety of blows as the karmic residue of his deeds. Persisting in the path, though, he attains arahantship, liberation from greed, hatred, and delusion. When Angulimala encountered the Buddha and felt genuine remorse for the first time, the Buddha didn't sentence him to a lifetime of psychological or physical self-flagellation. Instead, he taught him a practice. Feel the weight of what you've done. Yes. Make a vow to transform. Absolutely. Take concrete action to repair the harm where possible and restrain the behavior that caused it, and seek support from a community. Then, get busy living differently. The Buddhist tradition calls it intelligent regret, using feelings as fuel for transformation rather than a burdensome yoke of remorse. This is achieved by recognizing that every memory is a movie in our minds. Then, we can stop starring in the one called "I am awful," which seems to be on a continuous loop, and instead, we can create and star in a different one titled "I am awesome." Halfway around the world and several centuries earlier, the Stoics were thinking along remarkably similar lines. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his tent during military campaigns, repeatedly reflected that regret is only helpful if it guides us toward virtue. Otherwise, it's an unhelpful, caustic emotion that locks you in place. His advice was to focus on the present because it's the only time we can control. He suggests apologizing where possible, but not demanding or expecting a specific outcome. Most importantly, Aurelius says to let go of living like your old self. He understood that our most eloquent apology isn't what we say in moments of shame, but how we act from then on. The Stoics were emphatic that you don't take the stage to deliver speeches about your moral failure. You take accountability for your actions and quietly become someone who wouldn't make that choice again. It's less theatrical, but infinitely more effective. This wisdom translates remarkably well into contemporary psychology, which indicates that ruminating on those endless playback loops where you keep rewinding your failures causes depression and anxiety. It's your brain acting like an intern who keeps handing you the same 3-page memo titled, "You blew it." Well, guess what? You are the boss. You don't have to keep reading that memo. Also, hire a new intern. Psychologists often recommend cognitive behavioral therapy, which teaches how to interrupt that infinite remorse loop and reframe the narrative. Mindfulness allows that memo to arrive without it becoming your entire identity. Compassion helps us rework the narrative tone from hang the defendant to teach the student. Post-trauma protocols even address excessive guilt directly, helping assess responsibility rather than dumping it all on your head like some sort of shame bucket challenge. Compassion therapy teaches us to own the harm we've caused, repair what we can, and most importantly, become someone who wouldn't repeat it. So, what does this look like in practice? Well, constructive remorse is a scalpel, not a hammer. We use it to open wounds that need healing, not to demolish our entire psyche. This means precisely naming harm rather than drowning in vague self-loathing. "I broke a promise" is something you can work with. "I am broken" is just mythological nonsense that keeps you stuck and likely to repeat thoughtless patterns. The Japanese art of kintsugi repairs cracked pottery with veins of gold. The goal is not to hide the break, but to honor it by making the seam strong and beautiful. That's the healing power of remorse at its best. We don't pretend the fracture never happened. We acknowledge it, clean it, and set it with apology, amends, boundaries, and new behavior. Over time, the line where we once fractured becomes a gleaming reminder of what love can mend and what wisdom can hold. Reflective remorse means making amends where possible and letting forgiveness be a gift rather than a demand. It means changing the context that kept inviting the old behavior back for tea, putting boundaries on the calendar, actually making the phone call you've been avoiding, and following through on the repair you've been postponing. Now, some wounds won't close. Some people will not forgive you, and that's their right. The ledger of the past has pages that will never balance to our liking. But we can still choose the quiet work of transformation. We can still become a person whose presence reduces harm and increases beauty. The conscious universe, what some traditions call God, doesn't love you because you aced a test. Love is fundamental to the God field, woven into the fabric of existence. And so, love is also the fabric of our being and our existence. That truth doesn't trivialize or excuse harm, but it contextualizes it within a reality where transformation is always possible because love flows constantly, even when we can't see it through the hazy fog of regret. If godly sorrow is a tunnel, then love is the open air on the other side. I've developed a little remorse meditation that helps me reflect, reconcile, and release. It's something like this. I caused harm. Help me understand the effects of my actions. Encourage me to repair what I can. Guide my next steps with wisdom and compassion. And remind me that I am loved and capable of love. And then, since prayer should have legs, let it walk directly into your next conversation. Let remorse guide your feet to the places where mending can begin. Eventually, your past stops trying to execute you and starts educating you. The remorse that once threatened to swallow you becomes a place you visit with a flashlight and a pen so you can take notes and climb back out. The door that once only slammed closed begins to open. The story that once condemned you becomes a healing workshop. Remorse, used reflectively, doesn't ruin you. It refines you. Amen. Our question for consideration today: where in your life is remorse pointing like a compass? And where is it keeping you stuck? Let's consider for a couple of minutes, and then we'll open up for discussion.